Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim ji. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan and some of the sessions that we are having, especially in Ramadan. Uh, it's almost now the near the end of Ramadan, and very soon the month will be parting. It was a month of great blessings. I think all of us uh, went through a spiritual uplift. We found ourselves to be hopefully better people than before. This is a month of accountability. It's a month in which we take charge of ourselves. It's a month in which we would like to improve upon ourselves. And it's like a workshop, it's like a rehearsal. And the purpose of this workshop and rehearsal is that for the next 11 months, we become individuals who are able to sustain ourselves as good human beings. So, our primary effort in the month of Ramadan is to once again target ourselves and ensure that we will once again try to become individuals who are always going to be looked up as to be individuals who would be not only inspiring but also someone people who would be able to face the almighty in the hereafter in the sense that god will be pleased with us. So with this month's departure, of course, there is this feeling of sadness as well, but then of course this sadness is going to soon be replaced by the I would say the joy of Eid and the joy of meeting one another on Eid, and at the same time starting life with a new routine, with a new vigor, with some rejuvenation. So today we're going to talk about something very worldly. Uh, Although it's not that worldly, but I think that something that is quite worldly, but in fact, it does impact our hereafter as well. And that is that how can we live a happy life? How can we be happy in this world? How can we be individuals who are always satisfied, not bothered? Yes, problems and troubles do come our way, but how we can behave as individuals who are content and happy. So there are some tips that I would like to suggest here, and these tips, of course, are suggestions. They are more of advice and the experience of many people actually that has gone into forming and shaping these tips, these suggestions. So the first suggestion or the first tip that can make us a person who is happy, a person who is content, is that you see problems they do abound. So we are faced with all kinds of trials. We are faced with all kinds of tribulations. For example, the departure of a near one, financial constraints, ailments that we probably don't have any cure of. And I mean, there are so many things that we cannot change. We might be in a bad relationship. We might have a, I mean, what we call in Urdu, a guzare like spouse, or, or vice versa also. And of course, same goes with the parents and children and the place that we work. I mean, you just cannot change a lot of things. So the first thing to become a happy person is something that I actually learned from someone, and that someone was a person who was very sick. She was, in fact, she's a lady, and she was very sick, and she had diabetes, and she was carrying her vitriol with her, and that was attached to her belly or stomach, and it was, of course, outside the cloth, and she would keep on adding some medicines, and I mean, she was, I mean, behaving and looking awkward also. So, and she's related to us, so I just asked her that how is she feeling and how does she adjust to this all this thing. So she said a very beautiful thing, one beautiful sentence that caught my attention, and I literally made it a I tried to make it a part of my life. She said that I have made friends with my problems. I have made friends with the problem that I have because I know I just cannot do away with it. It's part and parcel of myself. So I picked up that line and I said that what wise words. You see, there are things in this life that we just cannot change. I gave you some examples, and there are things that we can change. So, as the saying goes, that God makes us wise by choosing that the things that we can change, God give us the strength to have them changed. But the things that we cannot change, God give me the patience and the acceptance that these are the things that I simply cannot change. I cannot walk out of a relationship for many reasons. I just cannot do anything if I am passing through grief of a person who's passed away. I mean, that person is not going to come back. Similarly, if I'm passing through straitened circumstances in my finances, and I don't see any way out, could be a very long tunnel. I still feel that okay, this is something that I have to adjust to. So I think the first key or the first step to happiness is to make friends with the problems that you have. You know what that means? It actually means the first step, I think, of this relationship is that we must come out of our state of denial. What happens is that we are passing through these trying circumstances, these tough circumstances. We don't accept them immediately. We tend to live in the past, and we try to behave as if nothing has happened. So I know another example that I can give is that I know someone, a very elderly lady, and very active in her life. She has been very active in her life. Maybe she is in her late 90s, late 80s actually, and she was refusing to accept that she has grown old, and now she is not able to walk properly or maybe go and do her chores properly. And I try to console her by telling her that, well, you have to accept that you're not the same person that you were 15 years ago or 10 years ago. Now you have respectfully and gracefully aged. You must accept that this has happened. I mean, this is an irreversible process. So the third thing I think to make friend with your problem is that we have to come out of this state of denial that we often find ourselves in because we don't gauge that things have changed. I cannot go back and become young again. I cannot bring back my dear departed person who's left this world. I cannot do so many things. So I think this is how we should be, that we should make friends with our problems, come out of the state of the denial, and accept. This acceptance is something, if we do, it'll make us realistic. We'll become realistic in our lives. We'll accept what has happened. And then we will spend more time on things that we can change instead of brooding on things that we cannot change. So you see, this is like it's like an attitude change that we have. And all the time that we do this, we get that positive energy in which we are able to understand that, well, this is my area now, and it is here that I have to accept this decision of God, and I have to move ahead in life and forget about what has happened. So this was the first tip that I think that we should all probably benefit from, that we start making friends with our problem, accept them, not just accept them. I will add one more word to it. Accept them wholeheartedly. Accept them with the willingness of your heart, not out of compulsion, not out of, I mean, you see, when you accept things out of compulsion, you start brooding, you start complaining, you're not always in the same, same pleasant mood. So accept these things wholeheartedly and learn to move on in life. Because you see, life has a lot to offer us. It has a lot to offer us. It's just a question of embracing that change and then looking out that what is the next path or what is my next duty or what is the next best thing that I can do. Okay, so this was the first tip that I wanted to share with you. The second thing that I also feel is something that can make us instrumental in being happy is that, to me, I think, and I can relate this to all of you here as well, and I think you would agree as well, that one of the greatest sources of becoming happy is to make other people happy. I mean, if I feel that I have done something and the person sitting in front of me or the person who's known to me, it has brought a smile on his or her face, or maybe changed that person to become a better person, I feel invigorated. I feel charged. I feel so happy. So I think the remote of happiness, so to speak, lies in our own hands. You radiate happiness, it comes back to you. So I think the second point that is very important is that let us try to make other people happy if we have to become happy, because that's going to bring us unlimited happiness. It's going to bring so much satisfaction to ourselves. And how can we make other people happy? I don't think I need to say much about that. For example, one of the biggest things from through which you can make people happy, in my mind, and that too is something that we don't do very frequently. We try to just go over it, and that is to genuinely appreciate people around you by expressing words, by expressing your appreciation in words. So this happens so many times that we learn from our very close relations, including our spouses, including our children, including our friends, but seldom do we express that appreciation. Yes, at times that appreciation remains in our minds, it remains in our hearts, but it doesn't come out. Because you see, at times appreciating others does require a little, I would say, jump over the ego. You see, it's not always easy to appreciate people without realizing that they are better than you or you have learned something from them, especially when they might be junior to you, or they might be younger to you in your age, or they might be your competitors. You see, when they are your competitors, when they are of your same sort or doing the same amount of work, for example, an engineer to an engineer, a doctor to a doctor, a mother to a mother, a father to a father, a child to a, I mean, we have these parallel relationships in our lives. So if you find someone who is doing the job that you are also doing, but that person is doing a job in a better way, he's showing to be a better mother, or she's showing herself to be a better mother, or a better father, or a better whatever. Express that appreciation in words. That is something, you know what, it gives tremendous encouragement to people. uh, this is something that we feel as well, that when I do something and I feel satisfied, it's something good, that's reasonably good. But you see, when I receive appreciation from my environment, from my surroundings, from people around me, from my friends, then all of us have experienced that urge to become an even better person and to do the things for which I was appreciated even more. It becomes tenfold. It becomes much more. So I think another very important thing is that we are able to express our appreciation for people around us and do it continuously. I mean, let's not be stingy. Let's not be. Let's not withhold ourselves. Let profusely appreciate people. I'm not saying you flatter them or you cajole them or you do something which is not well, contrary to what the truth is. Genuine appreciation, and for that, I can tell you that people around us, if we have a good relationship with our family, each one of us knows the strong points of the people around us. Each one of us knows how and where and when can I learn from the people around me, isn't that? Because we have experience of that. So let's express that in words, because that's going to make that person even more beneficial to us. That's a simple thing. Another thing that can bring this happiness to people is to forgive them for their faults. Forgiveness is something which is the trait of God. We all know that. We all would like to be forgiven. We would all like to be not only forgiven by God, but also if we have done something in a way that's not correct, then we'd like to be forgiven by people around us. So that forgiveness is something that we like. So one thing that can really become a person's, I would say, a favorite thing is that you try as much as you can, wherever you can, to forgo, forget, and move on in life. Whenever people do things, so you see, what happens is that when you're living in a relationship, when you're living close by, things happen. I mean, none of us is perfect. We make mistakes. So if I can make a mistake, anyone around me can make a mistake, because making a mistake is but human. As they say, to err is human, forgive divine. So that forgiveness is something that's again going to bring that smile on a person's face. And then, of course, listening out to a person's problems, his or her botherations, even if you're not in a position to maybe bring an antidote in the life of that person or correct that person in any way, that is besides the point. The first thing is to hear out a person. The first thing is to let that person know that I am there for you. You can talk to me. You see, in this world of today, you find very few people to whom you can talk to. I mean, the closest of your companions, the closest of your friends might not be the person that is also your confidant or someone whom you can talk to. So I think if you're able to offer your shoulder, if you're able to offer your time, your commitment to people around you, that is also something that's going to really make them happy. Because you see, we've discussed this before as well, that mankind is one fraternity. We are one big family. Yes, there are divisions because of race, religion, language, and so many other divisions. But that these are later divisions, and they should not in any way hinder us coming closer to one another. So that closeness, because of the fact that that is where we belong, it's like a family that we are living in. That is the second thing I would suggest that we should do, and do it as much as we can. So Until now, we've covered two tips. The first is that we try to make friends with the problems that cannot go away. The second is to be happy, make other people happy. And I've just given you some tips. Of course, all of you very well know in our own specific, peculiar circumstances, there are so many other things that we can do to make other people happy. The third tip that I'd like to give to make ourselves, remember, I'm talking about our own selves, to make our own selves happy, is what we call, and what we've derived something from our own experience, from ancient scriptures, and that is to be a person who's always thanking God for what we have, to be a person who's always thankful, who is always looking at things that I have around me. I have my parents around me. I have my spouse. I have my children around me. I can have a meal. I can share a meal. I have access to education. I have access to good health facilities. So you see, these basic necessities of life, if I have them, then I can count myself to be a lucky person. 40% of the world is living below the poverty line, which means that they don't have access to basic necessities. Basic necessities. They don't know if they are having a meal today, whether that meal is going to be available to them tomorrow or not. I mean, look at the plight of the people. We take things for granted. We take all these things for granted that tomorrow morning when I'm going to get up, I'm going to have breakfast, and I'm going to have lunch, and have dinner and tea, and go there and hang out and eat this and eat that. I mean, this is something that is so normal in our lives that we forget that this normalcy is not always found in the lives of many other people. So thank God for what we have, and to always be drenched with this feeling that there's someone who's caring for us. And that someone, of course, if you look at of the first cause, it is God. But then God has created so many other relations around us that they are also doing their job. So to be a person who is always in a thankful position, who is thanking God, not brooding, not complaining. And I often give this example that one of the greatest ways to show this gratitude is to share the favors that we enjoy, is to share the things that we have with the people around us, the people who are underprivileged. So, yes, thanking God by our tongue, by expressing this gratitude is also good. But the real way to thank God is to share our blessings with people who don't have them. And that is one way that we can really make a difference in the lives of other people. So, when we make a difference in the lives of other people, it makes a difference in our own lives as well. So, thanking God, always be in a position and in a situation that we all think that we are being taken care of. I'm living in a situation in which I'm far better off than so many other people around me. So if I go around even my own city, in my own country, in my own environment, I'll find, I mean, I do find misery around me. When I look at the social media, when we look at the social media, we find miserable instances, misery all around us, and humanity in problem all around us. So if we have, I mean, if somehow we are not in the same problem, I often encourage my students and my whenever I can get a chance to talk to, to make it a point to visit hospitals, to visit hospices, to visit old homes, to visit orphanages, and you'll see humanity in its. I mean, what misery they are passing through, and then you'll realize what you have. You don't realize what a mother and a father is unless you look at people who don't have a mother and a father. You don't realize people who are living, I mean, they are well off, but they're living in old homes because, in spite of having young children or maybe older children around them, they're still not around. I mean, they're still far and few between. So I think it's just, and look at, if you go to hospitals and if you look at patients who are terminally sick, if you go to these cancer hospitals, so there's a regular influx of students who are called to these cancer hospitals, and they, especially children who are suffering from terminal cancer, like leukemia, which is incurable. Similarly, there are other forms of cancer about which you know that it's just a question of time, just a question of time. The person is slowly and surely moving towards death. A boy this big, a girl this big, even small children. So if you go there, you'll realize that the health that I'm enjoying without even realizing that I have that health is really going to move you to the fact that I am better off. I must thank God for my health. And this is the biggest thing. And you know what? There is another thing that we need to do. If you go to certain hospitals and to certain other facilities, I would say, where there are patients who are mentally sick. So they are not sick in their body, they're perfectly fine, but they're mentally sick. And then you'll realize how important it is to be a sane person, to have our senses about us, to be in a position to enjoy life, not being mentally sick in any way. So you'll not, I mean, I think maybe you'll realize that I do think that mental sickness is worse than physical sickness, because the way a person will suffer who is a chronic depression patient of depression maybe, or some other ailment which just cannot be cured, and at the same time his or her mind is not fully aware. So if you look at such people, you'll find that how God has been kind to you, how blessed you are. Look at blind people. Look at people who are deaf or suffering from any other handicap. I know someone. In fact, I know she was one of my students actually. So I know that she married, and the first child that she delivered was an autistic child, and the second child that she delivered was another autistic child, and then her husband left her actually, and maybe married again, and she is living with her two autistic children, not in our own country, somewhere else, but I mean, she struggled all her life, and it has become so difficult for her to actually manage those special children and to make them integrate in the society that they're living in. And she has to do, I mean, tons and tons of work to maintain herself, to maintain social security allowances for the children, so that they can benefit from the government as well. So you see, this misery, these problems, these things that we look around us, they are tremendous. And one of the things that you might notice is that uh, one of the greatest religions of today is actually founded on this problem that we are not able to reconcile misery with God's mercy. For example, the Buddhism is a religion that is founded on the fact that Buddha himself, when he found out that this misery that we see around us has taken the better of our society, that he left his princehood. He was a prince. He was supposed to be the next king there. So he left his own environment, and he became. I mean, he just forsook the world, and he said that the only way to deal with the miseries of the world is to just stay away from the world itself. I don't think it was a solution. But then what we can understand is that how deeply people feel that they end up forsaking their pleasure, their own company, their own relatives, for the sake of earning that bliss. And today, I think if you look at the social media and you look at some of the other statistics that we can have, you'll find out that Buddhism is one of the fastest growing religions in the world. Mind you, it's not Islam, it's Buddhism. And one of the reasons is that they make you meditate, they make you go through certain mental exercises which give you that physical and mental relaxation. And that relaxation is something which is missing in the life of our every one of us so commonly. So all of us, we are passing through these trying circumstances. So what they do is they give you these exercises and these things that make you enjoy life, or at least not feel the misery of life. Atheism itself is something that is a product of the misery that we see around us. So you can well imagine that how this lack of reconciliation between God's mercy and the misery in this world has at times taken people to extremes. But on the other hand, as I said, if we have the right perspective, we will always find people who are less blessed than us. It's just a question of looking around us. It's just a question of finding people who will always be in a situation that we can find ourselves to be better than them, and we can thank God that God has been very kind to us. So this was the fourth step that I wanted to make. Let me just go through them again. The first was to make friends with your problems. The second was to bring happiness in the lives of other people. The third was that we express this gratitude before God in all circumstances. The fourth thing that can really give us a lot of joy and pleasure, I would say, is that we are able to understand that as far as life is concerned, the problems in life that we are always facing, they have their own place in life. And one of the ways that we can tackle these problems that really undo us is to understand that every problematic situation that we pass through is in fact going to work in our favor. How so? Because see, when you pass through these difficult circumstances and when you come out of those circumstances by being patient, you are a stronger person than before, isn't it? I mean, all of us, we know that the problem that I faced, let's say earlier on in life, and if I was resilient enough, determined enough not to let go of myself, and I got this opportunity to go through it in a very strong way, I find myself to be a better person. I find myself to be a stronger person. So, in other words, a crisis situation, a crisis situation is a situation in which you become a stronger person than before. So, in fact, it is something that can work in your own favor if you are able to understand this. And on a similar way, or on a similar note, I would also say that every crisis situation, every trying situation is an opportunity for every one of us to come closer to God. To come closer to God, because you see, as individuals, we know that when we're passing through these circumstances, the person who can really save us, the person who's going to really be comforting to us is God Almighty. So we tend to be more attached to His persona. So let us take this as an opportunity whenever we're passing through difficult circumstances, that we will take this as an opportunity to come closer to God, and at the same time realize that this is an opportunity to become a stronger person than before, a better person than before, so that I can call in my reserves. You see, when you're living a normal life, the traits that you have are the ones that are normally found in on your own self. But there are certain potentials that you have which are dormant, which are actually latent. They can only come to the surface when there is time of crisis. Because now you build on your reserves, you draw your reserves. The reserves are somewhere below. I mean, there's subterranean, so to speak. And what happens is that you draw upon those reserves and you actually add it to your own repertoire of traits, I would say. The last thing that I would say in this regard to make us a happy person, and it's not, don't take it as a very ordinary thing. I think it's one of the very important things in life that we have to do, and that is that we must do regular exercise. You see, whether we are able to go for a morning walk, whether it's a yoga exercise, whether it's some breathing exercise, whether it's some sport that you are able to play. One of the things that brings joy and relaxation to us is this physical workout. And medically also we know that 30 minutes of cardio, it releases dopamine, serotonin, these are hormones which are antidepressants. They come out in your sweat. If you lose them, and I think all of us do have this experience also, that when we have done a workout, when we have exercised, we feel light, we feel good, we feel energized because of the oxygen intake as well, and because of the release of those hormones that are antidepressants. So I think that we must be very regular people who are very regular in their physical exercise. And I especially say this to our younger generation, because you see, in our times when we were growing up, so for us, our parents and our schools were geared in a way that physical activity was a very important part of our life. And our own parents, we've heard tales of how they would walk 6 or 7 or 8 or maybe 10 miles, uh, all sorts of physical activity they would do. Because of the fact that that physical activity is no longer there, we have sedentary habits. We sit and work, or maybe even play on our phones or computers. There's no real physical activity. So that is something that it plays down your mental health. It plays down on your physical health as well. So mental and physical health is something that is always found through these relaxation, or through these means of entertainment. And one very good means of entertainment and relaxation, which is an offshoot, I would say, something parallel to your own workout, is to have good hobbies, good pastimes. For example, a person can be an artist, a painter, someone who draws, someone who's a gardener, like Samina Appa, who's a beautiful caretaker of her. She's not a gardener, she's a caretaker. She's someone who guides so many people, and it's heartening to see how natural beauty can really freshen you up. So I think this to have good hobbies which tend to relax you, to have good healthy means of entertainment that are able to relax you. This again is something that can make us happy, content individuals. And the last thing that I would say before closing down is that one more thing that can really make us very happy in life is to be a simple person. Simplicity, the keep it simple rule. Simple in our clothes, simple in our living, simple in our eating habits. Simplicity, it is something which is, I mean, unmatched. But you see, it's difficult to become simple. It's to become simple or to lead a life of simplicity is one of the most difficult jobs in the world, because you're not living in isolation. You're living with your family, you're living with your friends, you're living in an environment which does not let you remain simple. So you need to have some extra, need to put in some extra effort to become simple. And if you're able to achieve that, then I can tell you, you are one of the most blessed individuals. You'll have a very good night's sleep. If a person is simple, he'll have a good night's sleep. He'll have a meal that would be enough for him to cherish for that time. So this simplicity comes with this awareness that this rat race in life is something that's not worth it. It's not worth our health. It's not worth the relations that we enjoy, because you see, we when we are running this rat race, this is done at the expense of our time, that time that we need to give to our mother, to our father, to our children, to our spouses. I mean, it goes just runs away. You are not present for your own people because of that race that we are running, that competition that we have plunged ourselves into. So simplicity is something that takes care of that. It's an attitude that you have to develop. It's something that all of us need to really adhere to. And I think this is one of the greatest lessons of the month of Ramadan also, that we are just about to finish. So let us take it as a departing lesson of this month, to be a simple person in our lives, which of course does not mean that you cannot do certain, I mean, indulge in extravagance once in a while, but extravagance should not be a way of life. Should not be a way of life. So this is what I had to share with you regarding living a simple and happy life. And I come to an end to my talk, and so now we can have a Q&A.
Very simple.
Not that simple. आप सवाल तो उर्दू में पूछ सकते हैं please.
शेखर मेहमान जो दो आए हैं, ये कौन सा वाला बेटा है? आपका बेटा है? मेरा. Which one is that? हम दोनों को मिले हुए, उनको चाहे याद ना हो, but do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
एक कमेंट है जी, यहाँ इतना रवाज नहीं है वॉलंटरी वर्क का.
हाँ जी.
I think people, all of us have skills where we can give our time.
Oh, yes.
I don't mean charity by money, which is also very important, because there is, as you mentioned, there is such a high level of poverty.
जी.
But I think there are, like, from Roshni School
बिल्कुल.
to hospitals, जो
हाँ,
आपने कहा, to
जी. A lot of
हर सुख,
बहुत सारा.
हर किसी की
बहुत
skill
ज़्यादा.
के लिए
बिल्कुल.
there is a शौकत खानम, हर किसी की स्किल के लिए there are places
बिल्कुल.
where you need that human contact and time. I think that's the greatest.
बहुत ज़्यादा. And that brings you that satisfaction and joy, because you're trying to create a difference in the lives of other people.
And you're not doing such a stressful job, because like, for instance, been to this Roshni school several times, or blind school. Those people are very happy.
Oh yes.
It's not as if you are trying to
It's
overcome
we
their
we
misery.
we feel that they are in misery, but they are happy. हाँ.
Because that's
बिल्कुल.
the use of the book.
That is because they have accepted it. You see, they have.
Accepted it, and they have. Hats off to those who are trying to run these places.
Oh yes.
And they're doing a great job.
बिल्कुल जी, मैं तो समझता हूँ that these are our unsung heroes. I mean, not everyone is an AD or a Ruth Fao, but I mean, people like those who are running Roshni School, yeah, blind foundations, and they don't even know their names. But actually, they are the people who are the crown of humanity. They revive your faith in humanity.
I think I feel what you mentioned also about parents or old people. I think it's very important to give a little of your time
Oh yes.
to your old,
Oh, yes.
relatives,
Very,
or go
Ji,
to an
ji.
old home,
Oh yes.
because these people are lonely. They're lonely. They're craving company.
Right.
And just you make them so happy by just spending a little time with them.
Exactly.
That's how we really have to make that effort to do that for our relatives and for people, maybe a friend's mother or whatever. Just
Mhm.
just spend a little time with her.
Right.
It makes
Right.
a huge difference
Oh yes,
in
it does.
their lives.
It does.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी।
Yeah.
अभी ये टॉपिक क्योंकि चल ही रहा है तो आई वुड जस्ट लाइक टू ऐड दैट वी आर रनिंग अ चैरिटी स्कूल। अभी हमारे पास 350 प्लस बच्चे हैं जालो मोड़ के पास।
अच्छा।
तो आप में से कोई भी किसी भी वर्ग in terms of like your time to get in touch with those kids, उनके साथ time spend करना, किसी की कोई expertise होती है उनसे बात करना, storytelling, just visiting them, it gives a lot of like courage to them and a lot of
Right.
exposure to them.
Correct.
तो अगर आपने से
By what name?
हैप्पी होम्स जी हमारे 10 फाउंडेशन
happiness, okay.
बोर्ड नहीं लगाया
Okay.
उसने हमारे अपने फार्म हाउस पे चल रहा है।
Okay.
और अब तो हमने साथ मंडिया वाला गांव के साथ है तो वहाँ
अच्छा।
वोकेशनल ट्रेनिंग भी स्टार्ट की है।
Okay.
अभी हमारी खवातीन अपने प्रोडक्ट्स लेके एफबा के उन्होंने
अच्छा।
स्टॉल भी लगाया उन्होंने।
Right.
तो आप में से कोई जिस भी कैपेसिटी में जब भी टाइम देना चाहे यू आर मोस्ट वेलकम।
Thank you.
That's nice.
जी मैं अपना नंबर अभी शेयर कर लूंगी जी।
ग्रुप में शेयर कर दे
Actually, just a thought, Doctor.
जी।
The first point that you had is accepting your problems.
The problems, जी।
Friends with them. Now, if we are too much of a friend with them, then at times in the situation that you won't do anything, you can effort to get out of it.
Right.
Then you have to work yourself,
जी।
get out of the circle.
बिल्कुल।
So,
Actually, what I meant was कि कुछ चीजें ऐसी है ना जी जो कि जिनको आप lack of a better word encourageable कह रहे, you just cannot change them. यानी जहां तो आप चेंज करने का 1 इंच भी पाते हैं, you should make that effort. But there are certain areas के जहां आपको पता है कि भी कर करके अब it's just going to be just going to worsen. हाँ, कुछ irreversible. अब देखिए ना, someone who has passed away, you just bring that person back. अब I know so many people के जो grief में उनकी grief खत्म ही नहीं होती, मतलब 2 साल गुजर गए, 3 साल गुजर गए, they are still living in the past. तो it is here that you have to, I mean, understand कि भाई ये एक irreversible process है. इसमें जो चला गया उसे वापस नहीं आना. You have to understand this in a very clear way. तो इस तरह की चीजें हैं. या जिस तरह से आप देखिए कि मैंने भी मिसाल दी ना कि terminally sick patients हैं. You know that a cancer patient who is stage 4 is just a question. चले अल्लाह मियां को miracle दिखा दे तो दिखा ही सकता है. लेकिन साल है, 2 साल है, 6 महीने हैं. It's like going down. I know a mother who lost her 25-year-old son to cancer recently. तो अब वो अभी तक रिसेंटली तो नहीं है, साल से भी ज्यादा ही हो गया, लेकिन शी इज नॉट, जाहिर बहुत बड़ा हादसा भी है, इट्स नॉट नथिंग टेकिंग अवे टू टेक अवे फ्रॉम दिस ह्यूज ट्रेजेडी, लेकिन होता ये है कि अगर आप इसको अपने ऊपर सवार कर लें तो यू सी यू डोंट रियलाइज कि यू हैव अदर चिल्ड्रन ऑल्सो, यू हैव अ हस्बैंड ऑल्सो, यू हैव अ मदर ऑल्सो, तो आप उसमें उस स्पायरल में आ जाते हैं. तो इन चीजों में हमें एक्सेप्ट कर लेना चाहिए कि भाई ये एक कुदरत का काम है, कुदरत की एक मशीनरी है. वी आर अ कॉग इन दिस बिग मशीन. सो इसमें आपको यू हैव टू मूव ऑन इन लाइफ.
There is, I think, a reference in the Quran, शैतान की relationship with grief.
जी, वो ये है कि वो आपको चाहता है कि आपको मुसीबत में और आपको गम में मुब्तला करे, so that I mean you are not able to come out of it and you just remain in that spiral. जी जी, वो तो फिर इस तरह के हैं. हाँ, बिल्कुल.
So मेरा एक सवाल है slightly not related with this hardcore topic.
जी जी.
लेकिन जब हम सारा कुरान की भी देखते हैं चीजें तो अल्लाह ताला फरमाता है कि हम उस वक्त ये पूछेंगे और ईसा ये जवाब देंगे और कोई और
जी जी, एक डायलॉग है जो
डायलॉग वो पहले से बता रहा है जो भी आने हैं. इसी तरह वो कहता है कि और खुशगपियां लगा रहे होंगे जन्नत के बासी और जो दोज़ख में है वो एक दूसरे पे इल्जाम दे. तो वो सारी कॉन्वर्सेशन जो उस वक्त होनी है वो आज वो बता रहा है हमें. तो बात ये कि अगर ये सब प्री डिटर्मिन्ड है और इसी तरह जहाँ इब्लीस का कहते हैं कि जो उसने सजदे से इनकार किया, उसने कहा कि अब मैं जमीन पर आदम के औलाद को भड़काऊंगा. تو اس کا مطلب زمین واز آلسو پری ڈیٹرمنڈ. تو پھر اگر if everything is predetermined تو پھر what is it all about؟ پھر تو آدم اگر وہ پھل نہ بھی کھاتے تو ان کو زمین پہ آنا ہی تھا.
وہ تو بات صحیح ہے. قرآن مجید نے الگ سے بتا دیا تھا کہ اللہ تعالیٰ نے زمین میں ان کو بھیجنا ہی تھا. یہ تو پھل والا تو ایک اور وجہ بن گئی اور اس کے اندر ایک مزید چیز ایڈ ہوگی. ورنہ جو اصل بات ہے جی سمجھنے کی وہ یہ ہے کہ کچھ چیزیں تو واقعی پری ڈیٹرمنڈ ہیں. یعنی اس کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ پری ڈیسٹنڈ کہہ لیجیے. جیسے ہمارے پیرنٹس پری ڈیسٹنڈ ہیں, ہم نے کہاں پیدا ہونا ہے وہ پری ڈیسٹنڈ ہے. یعنی لیکن وہاں پہ ہماری اکاؤنٹیبلٹی بھی نہیں ہونی. ٹھیک ہے, ہماری اکاؤنٹیبلٹی ہونی ہے اس دائرے میں جہاں پہ ہمارے پاس اختیار ہے. یعنی مجھے پتا ہے کہ آج میں اٹھوں گا, باہر جاؤں گا اور فلاں آدمی کے ساتھ زیادتی کروں گا, یا میں اس کا اٹھوں گا اور میں جا کے اس کی یہاں چوری کروں گا. مطلب جہاں مجھے پتا ہے کہ آئی ہیو دا فریڈم ٹو ایکسپریس مائی سیلف اینڈ ڈو سم تھنگ بیڈ اور ڈو سم تھنگ گڈ, تو میری اکاؤنٹیبلٹی اسی دائرے میں ہوگی. جہاں پہ میرے پاس وہ نہیں ہے وہاں آپ کو یہ نہیں پوچھیں گے جی کہ آپ کہاں پیدا ہوئے اور کس ملک میں پیدا ہوئے. دیٹ از ناٹ گوئنگ ٹو بی کوشچن فار یو. کوشچن وہی ہوگا کہ جہاں ہمیں پتا ہے کہ میں آزاد ہوں.
صاحب جو تھے وہ ایسے ہماری فیملی میں شکایت کر رہے تھے کہ بیوی جو ہے بہت زیادہ عبادت میں وقت لگاتی ہے, تو کہتے ہیں میرے لیے
ٹائم نہیں.
ہاں یہ بہت سے ایسے کپلز ہیں تو اس کے لیے بھی اس میں بھی آپ کو obviously اعتدال ہونا چاہیے.
بالکل عبادت میں اعتدال ہونا چاہیے, اور یہ ذہن میں رکھنا چاہیے کہ انسانیت بھی ایک عبادت ہے. یعنی اللہ تعالیٰ سے کی طرف آپ کا رجحان ہو یہ بھی اچھی بات ہے, لیکن اللہ تعالیٰ کی مخلوق کی طرف بھی آپ کو توجہ دینی چاہیے, اور خاص طور سے وہ مخلوق جو آپ کے اتنے قریبی ہو, آپ کے شوہر ہوں یا آپ کی وائف ہو یا آپ کے بچے ہوں. تو یہ جو اکانومی آف ٹائم ہے یا پراپر یوٹیلائزیشن آف ٹائم از ایبسولوٹلی اسینشیل.
I think Myanmar ابھی covers all of this.
جی ماڈریشن اصل چیز ہے. بالکل
ہر چیز میں اعتدال ہو.
بالکل.
کوئی سوال
جی
میں نے یہ پوچھنا تھا, یہ جب جو نفل نماز ہیں
جی
یہ جیسے وہ تو ہے نا, جیسے 12 نفل ہیں جو ہم پڑھتے ہیں, اس کے علاوہ جیسے کہ نفل پڑھنے ہوں, اگر میں مثال کے طور پہ ظہر پڑھ لی ہے, نفل بھی میں نے پڑھ لی ہے, جو اس کے بعد اگر میں نے پڑھنے ہو تو کوئی بدعت تو نہیں ہوتی؟
نہیں بالکل نفل پڑھنا نہیں آپ کی مرضی ہے.
ہم لوگ کہتے ہیں کہ موقع اور غیر موقع کو ہم لوگ نہیں پڑھنا چاہتے.
دیکھیں یہ موقع اور غیر موقع کی بھی تقسیم نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی تو بنائی بھی نہیں ہے, نہ اللہ میاں نے بنائی بھی ہے, یہ تو ہمارے اسکالرز نے بنائی بھی ہے. تو اس وجہ سے آپ اپنی دیکھیں نا, اس کی فلسفی سمجھنی چاہیے کہ آپ جب ایکسٹرا کا نماز پڑھتے ہیں تو آپ مزید اللہ کا شکر ادا کرنا چاہتے ہیں, مزید اللہ تعالیٰ کے قریب ہونا چاہتے ہیں. اس پہ تو کوئی پابندی نہیں ہے, صرف اس میں اتنا توازن رکھیے کہ ایسا نہ ہو کہ آپ کی عبادت جو ہے وہ آپ کو اتنی سوار ہو جائے کہ آپ کے جو حقوق آپ پہ عائد ہوتے ہیں, جیسے بھی آپ نے مثال دی نا کہ بیوی یا شوہر جو ہیں وہ اتنے زیادہ خلطان ہو جائیں کہ ان کو یہ یاد ہی نہ رہے کہ میری شادی بھی ہوئی ہے.
یہ جو نماز کے بارے میں کہتے ہیں کہ یا اس طرح پڑھو کہ
جی
آپ اللہ کو دیکھ رہے ہو, یا یہ وہ آپ مطلب
آپ نہیں دیکھ رہے تو وہ تو دیکھ رہا ہے.
وہ تو دیکھ رہا ہے.
جی جی
How do you practically
نہیں, وہ اصل میں یہ صرف بتانے کا مقصد یہ ہے کہ اپنے آپ کو خدا کی پریزنس میں فوکس رکھنا کیسے ضروری ہے. کہ اگر آپ کو یہ محسوس ہونا کہ یو آر بینگ واچڈ, آپ یو ول بی مور attentive, you'll stand in a more I mean
that is the constant state.
it's a constant state. بالکل ایسے ہی ہے. تو وہ صرف یہ ہے کہ وہاں پہ نماز کے بارے میں نہیں کہا گیا, بلکہ وہ جو حدیث میں وہ کہا گیا احسان کسے کہتے ہیں. تو انہوں نے کہا کہ کانا کا آپ جیسے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ کو دیکھ رہے ہیں, اگر آپ نہیں دیکھ رہے تو یہ مت سمجھیے کہ آپ اگر نہیں دیکھ رہے تو وہ آپ کو نہیں دیکھ رہا. تو یہ صرف ایک it's not just the prayer, it's like a constant attitude that you have to have. تو آپ کی زندگی اسی طرح کی ہونی چاہیے تاکہ اللہ تعالیٰ آپ کو دیکھ رہے ہیں, آپ اس کی پریزنس میں ہیں, nothing is hidden from him.
That's exactly what I mean, but how do you differentiate it then? Because
وہ جو الفاظ ہیں نا حدیث کے, وہ ان تعبد اللہ کا ان کا تراہ, کہ آپ اللہ تعالیٰ کے ہاں عبادت کریں, صرف نماز نہیں کوئی بھی عبادت کریں. تو چونکہ اس میں اللہ آپ کے سامنے نہیں ہے نا, تو اگر میرے سامنے کوئی ہو تو میری اٹینشن ڈائیورٹ نہیں ہوتی, I mean فوکس رہتا ہے. تو اللہ بھی یہاں چونکہ آپ کے سامنے نہیں ہے تو فوکس آپ کا لوز ہو جاتا ہے. تو یہ کہا گیا کہ اپنے آپ کو یاد دہانی کراؤ کہ بھائی آپ نہیں دیکھ رہے, وہ دیکھ رہا ہے. کیونکہ عام حالات میں دونوں ایک دوسرے کو دیکھ رہے ہوتے ہیں جب انسان, لیکن اللہ کے معاملے میں جسٹ ون سائڈ ہو از سین. So it's just like a reminder to ourselves that you are being watched. So try to be more attentive.
The last many siparas of the or parts of the Quran and the ayats of the Quran, I feel are very threatening towards, saying you will burn in hell, this will happen to you, that will happen to you. Is is there? I know that the Quran it said that in the Quran there's these verses mentioned, and then immediately there's mention of goodness and paradise and for the people who've been good. But I somehow it bothers me that there is so much of
نہیں وہ اس کی وجہ آپ دیکھیں کہ قرآن کے سامنے جو لوگ ہیں نا وہ زیادہ تر جہاں اللہ میاں کا اینگر آپ کو نظر آئے گا وہ مشرکین ہیں جن کو شرک کے بارے میں پتا چل گیا کہ غلط ہے، لیکن وہ کہتے نہیں ہم چونکہ ہم نے باپ دادا کو کرتے ہوئے پایا ہم اپنے اس باپ دادا کے مذہب کو چھوڑ نہیں سکتے. ان کے ہاں وہ تکبر ہے، ان کے ہاں وہ ایروگنس ہے، ان کے ہاں وہ خدا کو پہچاننے کے باوجود خدا کا ڈسریگارڈ ہے، کوئی کنفیوژن نہیں ہے، کوئی لیک آف انفارمیشن نہیں ہے. تو وہ اصل میں وہ اس طرح کے مجرمین کے بارے میں ہو سکتی ہے. اٹس ناٹ کامن کرمنلز. کامن کرمنلز جو ہیں، کیونکہ دیکھیں نا اللہ تعالیٰ کے جب پیغمبر آتے ہیں تو آزمائش سخت ہو جاتی ہے اور سچائی جو ہے وہ اللہ تعالیٰ بالکل واضح کر دیتے ہیں، کوئی کنفیوژن نہیں رہتی. تو جب نہیں رہتی اور آپ جانتے بوجھتے ہوئے انکار کرتے ہیں تو پھر یہ تو ایسے ہی مجھے بھی بڑا غصہ آئے گا کہ اگر دیکھیں کتنا فرق ہے کہ اگر میرے سامنے کوئی ایسا لیٹس سے مجرم کھڑا ہو کہ جس سے کہ چیز غلطی سے ہو گئی، یا لیٹس سے کہ اگنورنس میں اگر نہیں ہوئی جذبات میں آگے ہو گئی ہے یا نا واقفیت میں ہو گئی ہے، لیکن ایک وہ مجرم ہے جو کہتا ہے کہ ہاں مجھے سب کچھ پتا تھا لیکن میں نے جان بوجھ کے یہ کام کیا، تو ہمیں بھی غصہ زیادہ آئے گا. تو اللہ میاں کا بھی غصہ وہ جو ان صورتوں میں ہے وہ ان لوگوں کے لیے ہے کہ جن کو سچائی کا پتا تھا، اپنے جرم کا پتا تھا، لیکن جرم پہ وہ دلیر ہو گئے. یہ دے بیکیم ٹھیک ہے جی ایسی ہے تو ایسے ہی صحیح. تو ایسے جو لوگ ہیں وہ ہمیں بھی پسند نہیں ہے، تو اللہ میں بھی پسند نہیں. تو یہ ایکچولی وہ ان کے لیے اٹس ناٹ فار.
A lot of it is symbolic کہ آپ کو پریشانی ہوگی اگر آپ غلط کام کریں. مطلب کوئی الاسکا میں رہ رہے تو their concept hell اگر آپ ان کو گرمی کہیں تو it will be very good.
نہیں وہ آپ کو اندازہ نہیں ہے کہ جو جہنم کی گرمی ہے وہ الاسکا والوں کے لیے بھی نہیں. وہ بعض جگہوں پہ ایکچولی کچھ چیزیں سمبولزم میں بھی آئی ہیں، لیکن جہاں جیسے یہ آگ کا ذکر ہے وہ اتنا لنگوسٹکلی امپاسبل ہے کہ ہر جگہ آپ اس کو سمبولزم لیں. مطلب لینگویج ہے نا، مطلب میں اگر آپ کو بولتے ہوئے کہہ رہا ہوں کہ میں فلاں آگ میں آپ کو ہم جلائیں گے، تو اس کے لیے زبان کے اسالیب ہونے چاہیے جسے پتا چل جائے کہ بھی ایک سمبولزم ہے. اٹس ناٹ سم تھنگ وچ از لٹرل. جیسے ایسی مثال، بڑی موٹی سی مثال ہے، میں آپ سے کہوں کہ جی میں چڑیا گھر میں گیا اور میں نے شیر دیکھا، اور میں اس کے بعد ایک اور جملہ کہوں کہ بھائی میرا فلاں دوست تو شیر ہے. اب دونوں جگہ میں نے شیر کا ورڈ استعمال کیا، ایک میں شیر جانور کے لیے تھا اور ایک میں شیر ایک بہادر آدمی کے لیے. تو اب لنگوسٹکلی آپ انٹرچینج نہیں کر سکتے. تو اسی طرح سے بعض جگہوں پہ سمبولزم ہے اور وہ واضح ہو جاتا ہے سمبولزم، اور جہاں پہ نہیں ہے وہاں آپ شفل نہیں کر سکتے.
بٹ جو ہیون کی ساری جنت کی ساری ڈسکرپشن ہے وہ تو از مینٹ ٹو، وہ تو
لٹرل ہے. لٹرل ہاں. سمبولک سے کیا مراد ہے؟ آپ دیکھیں وہ ذہن میں رکھیں کہ وہ عربوں کے لیے بتایا گیا، ان کے لیے تو بہترین چیز ہے وہ، لیکن باقی دنیا کے لیے کہا گیا کہ جو کچھ آپ چاہیں گے آپ کو ملے گا. سو وہ عرب کیونکہ مخاطب تھے، ان کے لیے ایک اونچا باغ جو آفتوں سے بچا ہوا ہو، ایک ہائٹ پہ ہو، اٹ واز سم تھنگ دیٹ واز ویری چیریشڈ. اور ہمارے لیے بھی مطلب آپ کنٹری سائڈ میں اگر آپ کو اچھے لگے تو آپ کے لیے چیزیں بڑی یو ریلش ہیں. لیکن یہ ایک ایسی یوں سمجھ لیں جنت کی ڈسکرپشن ہے جو عرب لوگوں کی ذہن کے کو مخاطب کرتی ہے. باقی ہم لوگوں کے لیے تو کہا گیا کہ بھائی آپ جو بھی آپ مانگیں گے وہ مل جائے گا آپ کو. تو اس وجہ سے وہ ایکچولی وہ لٹرل ہی ہے، ان کے لیے وہ لٹرل ہے، ہمارے لیے بھی اس لحاظ سے لٹرل ہے کہ وٹ ایور ویل ڈیمانڈ وہ مل جائے گا. آپ وہ شاپنگ سینٹرز چاہیے ہیں آپ نہیں کیوں آپ شاپنگ سینٹرز وہاں رکھتے ہیں اور ہم سے کہیں گے کہ یہ فری آف چارج ہاں کریکٹ یس. وہ دیکھیں نا قرآن نے کہا ہے کہ وہ ایسی بلس ہوگی کہ آپ یو جسٹ ناٹ یو کی ناٹ امیجن دیٹ بلس ان دس ورلڈ.
But as you just mentioned کہ Arabs and talking to Arabs,
جی
تو وہ वो जमीन और वो सारी environment is also
बिल्कुल
in God's mind कि आप
Oh, yes.
वो करें और
जो first
समझाने
addresses
के
है।
लिए,
जी, बिल्कुल।
communication
बिल्कुल। अब देखें ना, आप आज की मिसाल अगर अरबों को देंगे तो उनके लिए तो इरेलेवेंट हो जाएगी ना, जो हमें चीजें पसंद है
right
तो वी स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट दोज थिंग्स, वो एग्जिस्ट भी नहीं करती। तो ये चीजें टाइम बाउंड भी हैं और इसको जनरलाइज कर दिया गया कि वट एवर यू विल डिजायर यू विल गेट
जी
दैट।
उसके बाद
Dr. Saab,
जी
I want to thank you, and certainly more so Samina. This is our last session in this Ramzan, as you have said.
जी
And I think you've said a lot, but we have benefited tremendously, and we want to thank you both.
my
I have one question.
जी
My question is, Dr. Saab, you've covered the subject very well, where you have touched upon all sorts of happiness. This happiness comes from your mind.
oh yes बिल्कुल
It's the state of mind and how you manage it.
जी
Unfortunately, you also did mention, but mental health, every family, whether they're rich or whether
Oh,
they're
yes.
poor, you
There-
find that there is a problem. Some sort of mental
a
health
lot of
problem.
mental problem
And that person, and there is all over the world,
बिल्कुल
except maybe in Europe, there is a perfect way of handling, and they're very gentle and they're inclusive, where people who are deficient.
देखिए वहां पे लोनलीनेस इज अ बिग, वहां पे प्रॉब्लम्स की नोयत चेंज हो जाती है।
But what I wanted to ask you is that how do you make friends with this terrible enemy? Because it is an enemy. In the case of physical illness, you know कि जी कैंसर है, अल्लाह की मर्जी, कुछ बंदा अपने आप को रेकनसाइल करता है, डेथ है, हो गया। यहाँ तो and other things which you mentioned, how do you make friends with this mental illness? Because it's a lifetime of that person not knowing what I'm doing, or overdoing it and creating problems for themselves and for the whole of society.
जी
I think
that's very difficult.
The one way which I have seen has worked, and that is ask Allah to give you strength to bear it.
Of course, वो तो है ही।
Because you cannot make friends. And in Pakistan, all day, there's no mental care, no mental health
बहुत
program.
treatments
जी
a lot of treatments
देखिए
psychiatrists psychologists
मैं आपको बताऊं कि
recognize नहीं करते
वन बिग प्रॉब्लम इन पाकिस्तान है कि ये एक टैबू है, यानी यू वुड नॉट लाइक टू डाइवर्ज दैट आई नीड सम मेंटल अटेंशन। जो आदमी साइकियाट्रिस्ट के पास जाता है वो कहते हैं ये टैबू इसलिए है कि भाई इंसान को पागल समझा जाएगा या ही विल नॉट बी और शी विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड अ नॉर्मल पर्सन। यू सी नॉर्मलसी, अगर इफ यू नॉट मेंटली साउंड तो नॉर्मलसी लोग उसको जाहिर है कि दे मेक फन ऑफ इट एक्चुअली। सो फिजिकल एलिमेंट का मजाक कम उड़ाया जाता है लेकिन दिमागी एलिमेंट का मजाक कम ज्यादा उड़ाया जाता है, तो आप यू टेंड टू हाइड इट। तो ये वो
कहते हैं पागल
जी। हालांकि आपको मैं देखूं जो इस वक्त मॉडर्न स्टडीज हैं, आई ट्राई टू कीप द रेस्ट ऑफ देम, वो ये बताती हैं कि बहुत सारी जो मेंटल इलनेसेस हैं दे आर क्योरेबल, क्योंकि वो केमिकल इम्बैलेंस, इट्स बेसिकली माइंड्स केमिकल इम्बैलेंस।
लेकिन वो जो पेशेंट है ना, वो नहीं मानते ना, दे डोंट एग्री दैट दे आर
जी वो ये तो एक और कैटेगरी ऑफ पेशेंट्स है ना कि वो हु आर सिक बट दे नॉट एक्सेप्ट दैट।
So this is, I think, in your whole lesson on happiness, ये तो इलावा अल्लाह ताला के मेरा तो नहीं है था कोई ऐसी चीज।
हाँ जी वो तो
But you need a sound mind to be able to think that way also.
Of course.
To make friends with
जी
problem. It would be difficult.
जी
Regular exercise है ना,
mind to manage that.
बिल्कुल।
because I've seen that they during some work of mine in Islamabad, I was shocked. I mean, things which you physically see yourself, they remain
etched in your memory,
fixed over that. And there was this little child, maybe 8 or 10, and they tied his leg to the manji.
Oh.
and because he was
हाँ,
of
not sound.
not
हाँ,
sound mind,
ये
and
तो
shut the door.
हॉस्पिटल्स में ऐसे होता है जी. They tend to tie people because वो violent हो जाते हैं
वो
ना.
दूसरों
Yes,
को
sir.
harm करते हैं.
जी जी, दूसरों को harm करते हैं.
यही कहते हैं. So this was something which I think
Oh,
we don't really
we
give
don't
it
realize it.
mental
Okay.
health
Oh
in
yes.
the whole of Asia.
और ये मैं आपको बताऊं जी कि कोविड ने बहुत सारे यंगस्टर्स को मेंटल हेल्थ में का शिकार किया. यानी पहला मेंटल हेल्थ होती थी, वी वुड नॉर्मली एसोसिएट विद एल्डरली पीपल,
हाँ.
लेकिन आप 16 ईयर ओल्ड, 12 ईयर ओल्ड, 11 ईयर ओल्ड, यानी वो उस मेंटल हेल्थ का शिकार होते हैं. एंड इसलिए आप देखें कि बाहर हर यूनिवर्सिटी में या इवन एट स्कूल लेवल यू हैव अ काउंसलर देयर, जो साइकोथेरेपिस्ट होता है बेसिकली. तो दैट साइकोथेरेपी is an essential part, and we don't realize कि जैसे फिजिकल एलिमेंट के लिए फिजिकल डॉक्टर्स चाहिए, तो मेंटल जरूरी नहीं होता कि आप पागल ही हो. यानी गलत रवैये, गलत तरीके से चीजों को सोचना समझाना, तो आपको मेंटल थेरेपी चाहिए होती है, माइंड थेरेपी. दैट माइंड थेरेपी इज नीडेड बाय अ नॉर्मल पर्सन आल्सो. आई मीन अ नॉर्मल हेल्दी माइंड जिसका है उसको भी चाहिए थेरेपी. तो चूंकि हम इस थेरेपी को के बारे में अवेयरनेस हमारी कम है, तो इसी वजह से आप देखिए कि बच्चों के अंदर बहुत इनहराफात आजकल पैदा हो रहे हैं. ड्रग्स का इशू है, इतना ज्यादा ड्रग्स का इशू है कि आई कैन नॉट टेल यू कि हमारे स्कूल्स के अंदर हमारी मैं पहले यूनिवर्सिटी में था, अभी स्कूल्स में है, और ये अब पहले सेकेंडरी क्लास में था, अब प्राइमरी क्लास में भी आ गया. तो यू कैन नॉट इमेजिन कि ये किस तरह से वो इन्फिल्ट्रेट कर रहा है. तो
I think one of the reasons is it's a very harsh, हमारी society is harsh, unforgiving and not open.
ये भी है,
You don't
ये भी है
recognize the problem.
जी.
आप recognize करेंगे तो आप
जी,
जाएंगे ना.
मतलब बहुत सारी कॉजेज हैं जी. बच्चों के अंदर एक थ्रिल, देखिए ना, गंदे सोशल मीडिया की वजह से दुनिया भर का एक्सपोजर आपके पास है. यू नो कि भाई बाकी दुनिया में बच्चे कैसे एंजॉय कर रहे हैं, तो फॉर द थ्रिल ऑफ इट, फॉर द एडवेंचर ऑफ इट, और भाई मतलब इस तरह में वो ये सारे काम करेंगे. इट बिकम्स अ फैशन ऑल्सो कि भाई इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग दिस देन यू आर अ डिफरेंट पर्सन. आपको नर्ड कहेंगे वो. तो ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ प्रेशर्स.
Doctor, when you mentioned COVID,
जी.
I think the stronger negative influence during those same COVID days has been the children being tied down to their computers.
Oh yes.
And over there, the individualistic
बिल्कुल,
they हो गए,
बिल्कुल.
antisocial,
बिल्कुल.
they don't communicate. And
Oh, yes.
all the messages that you have given regarding happiness, they don't relate to an isolated person.
बिल्कुल.
And children have become so isolated due to this.
वो एक नई जनरेशन है जी जो हम देख रहे हैं, और that generation is also passing through its own.
And now we are coming up with artificial intelligence.
Oh yes.
Where
ये कला है. कल I got a.
we'll become redundant.
जी,
I
जी.
wanted to ask you, Doctor, and it's not related, but I think we'll all be interested. Is there any reference, the Quran? I was reading a few days ago, and it was about bees, the Quran bee,
जी.
and it was so well pronounced that 1400 years ago, Islam was able to, through the Quran, tell us about this and this and this. Someone from BBC was making a talk. Is there anything about artificial intelligence in the Quran?
No, नहीं ऐसी कोई. वही है. हाँ जी. इस वक्त नेचुरल इंटेलिजेंस इज एन इशू. कल आई रिसीव्ड अ वीडियो जिसमें अल्लामा इकबाल और कायद आज़म वो सो रियल. आई मीन लगता था कि गप्पे लगा रहे हैं, बात कर रहे हैं. तो ये तो अब अभी तो ये शुरू हुआ है, तो इसमें तो जाहिर है कि डिसीव करना, फेक चीजें बनाना इतना आसान हो जाएगा, और हो गया हुआ है. वो एवटार्स वो बनाते हैं जिसमें दे बिकम रियल लाइफ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल रियल आपको लगता है. और वो अभी देखिए ना, उन्होंने तो ये किया है कि जैसे इजराइल में देयर इज अ बिग कंपनी, उन्होंने, और देयर इज वन इन पाकिस्तान, दो आपस में कंपेटिटर्स हैं. आई नो वन ऑफ देम. तो उनका जो सीईओ बता रहे थे कि आप क्या करते हैं कि यू गैदर इंफॉर्मेशन अबाउट अ पर्सन, वट एवर ही हैज स्पोकन एंड रिटन इन हिज लाइफ और हर लाइफ, और आप एक डेटाबेस में वो डाल देते हैं. वो उसकी वोकैबुलरी, उसका स्टाइल, उसका हर चीज वहां पे आ जाती है. उसके बाद वो एआई के जरिए से सिंथेसाइज करते हैं, और आपको वो वहीं से डाटा लेंगे जो आपने बोला हुआ है. आप ही की आवाज होगी, आप ही का स्टाइल होगा, हत्ता के द वे यू मूव योर हैंड्स, द मूव यू फेस, जिस तरह से आप खाना खाते हैं, इतना क्लोज रेप्लिका होगा कि यू अनमिस्टेकेबली द सेम पर्सन, लेकिन डूइंग अदर थिंग्स. You cannot stop that.
Beginning
Beginning of the end. तो हम नमाज पढ़ लें जी, it's now 5 o'clock. We'll just end the session.